Our next teller is Steve Falvo. Steve is a longtime story spinner and an author. Tonight he takes us north to that UP. Is the Isle Royal part of the UP?
It is.
Yes.
Technically it is.
Yes.
A Michigan treasure with his story, Windigo. Put your hands together, Steve.
Many years ago, I had a couple dreams. One dream was to buy a sailboat. I wanted to be able to sail places, and I was able to do that. I had a second dream. I wanted to sail to Isle Royal National Park. And when I first bought my boat, it didn't take me long to figure out that if I did that trip right away, it could very well be my last trip. But I was able to, many years later, be able to go to Isle Royal on my boat. And I made it out there, drove around to Grand Portage, Minnesota, launched the boat from there, sailed the 24 miles out to the island. Once I got to the island, sailed the 4 miles through Washington Harbor to Windigo. And over the course of the next 10 days, I was able to go to the far end of the island, 45 miles away, and all the way back. And I saw all kinds of beauty and animals and just cool things. It was a great experience. And but it was kind of like a whirlwind. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but I wasn't really able to process the trip as I was doing it. It wasn't until I got home and started thinking about the trip that some things started to make more sense to me. And so as I was processing, I thought about that first night at Windigo. We had been on the road for a while during the day, driving there about 4 hours, and then that was our second day of driving, and then about 5 hours to get out to Windigo, and it was almost evening time. The sun was starting to set, and we were hungry. And one of the things, I took 2 friends with me. One was Roger, and the great thing about Roger going was he was a part-time or a hobby Mediterranean chef, and he planned all the meals and all the food for the trip. I didn't have to do a thing with that, which was a big win. And he asked one of his friends, Mel, to go with us as well. And so Roger was 54 at the time, and Mel was 71. So that first night, we parked the boat, or docked the boat at this big dock. You could tie up about 4 boats on each side of the dock, and we were the third boat out. And then we walked to shore, carried our food and everything we needed to eat, and they had this big, new beautiful pavilion there. Looked like it was the first season it was being used. Probably had about enough room for 10 picnic tables underneath it. And so Roger was getting ready to start up his new grill, or not grill, stove. It was a Coleman stove, and it was a new style. It wasn't those green ones that were propane or that you pumped up, that you folded up the top and folded out the sides to block the wind. It wasn't that style. This one was like a red clamshell, and you would take it and open the 2 halves, and you had a burner on each side, and then it had a hose coming off of it with a fitting, and you'd screw a propane canister to it. And so as Roger started to try to get this stove ready, he had a problem. It was the first time he used it, and he couldn't get the propane canister screwed on correctly. And then the valve, it wasn't on far enough that the valve would actuate and let gas come out. And I watched him doing this for a few minutes, and as he was doing this, I thought, I know exactly what to do. Because I had a small portable grill that had those canisters, and sometimes I had the same exact problem. And so as soon as he had taken several minutes and was ready to give up, I said, "You having some problems there, Roger?" "Oh, yeah, I am." "Would you like me to take a look at it?" "Oh, yeah, could you?" And so in the time, probably maybe less time than what it's going to take me to tell you, I first I bent down. It was like a little pea gravel floor underneath the pavilion. I picked up a tiny piece of gravel. I dropped it in the top of the canister. I took the canister, threaded it onto the grill fitting, and I turned on the gas. I took the lighter and lit it, and the grill was going. And Roger and Mel were both, whoa! It was awesome. They were quite amazed, and I was feeling like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And so Roger made a great meal, and when you've had a big day outdoors, eating outside to cap it off is a wonderful treat. And so we had a great meal, and then as became our tradition, Roger would cook the food, and then Mel and I would do the cleanup. And because I had helped to put the grill together and get the grill going, the stove, I'll take the stove apart. So I started to unscrew the canister, and as soon as I did, something happened that surprised me, caught me off guard. The instant that canister came off of the fitting, gas started spewing out of the canister. And within probably about 8 seconds, the total contents of the canister had emitted into the pavilion. We were the only people in the pavilion, and it was just like a cloud of fog and gas in there, but nothing else happened. It just was, we kind of chuckled about it and drove on. And I made a note not to do that again. And I knew it was different than what I had experienced at home, because when I always used my grill, I always used it until the canister was empty. And that was the problem. I knew that's what the problem was the instant it started spewing gas, but I couldn't do anything about it at that point. It was so pervasive, that gas, that Roger was out, third boat out on the dock, putting some food away, and he later commented he smelled something out there. He didn't know what it was. And it was this gas. It had just floated out, migrated all the way down the dock. Well, as I was sitting home thinking about this, I was thinking this could have been a very bad thing. If, for instance, the last night we were at Windigo, after we'd gone all the way across the island and came back, we stayed at Windigo again. That night, there were 2 other groups of people using picnic tables underneath the pavilion. One of them had a stove going with a live flame. If that had happened then, there could have been some kind of a flash fire or explosion. People could have been hurt, possibly killed, could have very easily destroyed their new pavilion. I might have had a completely different story if I were alive. So, in thinking about that, obviously I was thankful that nothing bad happened out of it, but I started thinking about where we were at when it happened. Windigo. And I knew that Windigo had some kind of Native American meaning, but I didn't know a lot about it. If you look at the plaque at Isle Royal, right there, right next to where you walk off the dock, between the dock and the pavilion, it says Windigo, W-I-N-D-I-G-O, is named for the Windigo Mining Company, W-E-N-D-E-I-G-O. And to me, that didn't completely make sense. If it's named for the mining company, spelled W-E-N-D-I-G-O, why isn't it spelled that way? Maybe there's more to the name Windigo than what I think. And so I did a little research on Windigos. And Windigos are like a mythical Native American creature that could be quite large and were known for eating people, I guess, but never being satisfied. So that might come in handy. Maybe they should try the keto. So that's one meaning for it. And the Windigo would go after people, attack people that were greedy. That's the mythical definition, the primary definition. But there's also a trickster definition that goes along with Windigo. That sometimes Native American Windigo might try to pull some kind of a prank or just mess with you a little bit. And I wondered, maybe I'd had a Windigo experience. So as I was thinking more about my trip, I fast forward through the 9 days. I was on the 9th day. We were back in Windigo again at Washington Harbor at the dock in a different space. And I went for a big hike that day up the Ridge Trail and got up to the top and saw a beautiful overview up kind of on the ridge of the island where you could see all around you, panoramic views. And I had to kind of hustle back to get back in time for supper again. And when I was just a few minutes away from the boat, something unusual happened to me. I was on the trail right along Washington Harbor when all of a sudden, zoom, zoom, something's going over my head. It's like a bee on steroids. Something's buzzing right over my head. As soon as it passes over, zing, passed by again. This probably happened close to 20 times as I was there. And what it was a hummingbird strafing me right above my head. And I started thinking maybe I'm, in its territory or something. And so I took a few steps away and it flew a few more times and then finally landed in a tree. But I'd never been attacked by a hummingbird before. Could this be another Windigo experience? I don't know. Now, fast forward to the very next day. We're going to leave Isle Royale. This will be our 10th day on the island. And literally my last hour on the island, I'll just say nature called. If you think, we're getting ready to do a 5-hour boat trip, if everything goes okay, and my boat was big enough that it had a porta potty and a teeny little head area, like a closet that you could take care of business in, but you don't want to have to do more than you need to do. So, I've been on Windigo at the ranger station on 4 different days during this trip. And when nature called, I would go use the restroom, the men's restroom, and I'll tell you something about the restroom on Isle Royale. At least at that time, when you'd walk in, there'd be several urinals on the wall on the right side. If you walk straight ahead, you would come to 2 sinks, and then you would take a turn to the right, and there was a little hallway that would go down, and there were 2 stalls in that hallway. And I came to discover that there was one particular stall that I wanted to use if I had to use it. And I walked back to the first stall. The problem with that was there was no lock on the door. They had a door, but no lock. And the second stall had a lock, but in this case, when I got there and looked in, there was no toilet paper in it. And so I walked back to the first stall, and I started to peel off some toilet paper. But it's the kind of dispenser that has that single-ply toilet paper, and it has the strong tension on both sides. So when you go to pull it off, you're just getting little pieces. So I'm starting to do the math. Am I going to be able to pull off enough here to take care of my business or not? I'm not sure. I don't know if I have that long. I guess I'm going to have to use this stall. And so here's the next problem. So there's no lock on the door. I push the door shut and it kind of whisks open a little bit. And I go back and sit down. But unfortunately, back means actually back farther than this wall. So you couldn't reach the door. If there were an emergency, you couldn't reach the door. So I go back, I'm starting, everything's going great. And I think this is all going to work out just fine. And then I noticed that the ferry boat from Grand Portage, Minnesota had arrived. And it was out at the end of the dock. And when that happens, and I'd seen this happen a couple other days, maybe 20, 25 people would get off the boat. And then the ranger would talk to them. All right, people, welcome to Mackinac Island. The ranger station's up on the hill. There's a restroom beside it. Before you go, there's a trail to your left that will take you to Menang Ridge and some mines. If you go to the right, that will take you to some scenic overviews of a lake. Be cautious of moose. Moose do not like people. They're very irritable. You could get hurt. Avoid moose, please. And he said a few more things and then wished him a nice day and told him the boat would leave in so many hours. And then my mind started thinking, okay, there's going to be like 24 people that have just been on a boat for 2.5 hours. I know there's some people that probably are going to need to use the restroom. And some of those people are probably going to be men. So I'm trying to hurry, but I'm not quite finished with everything. And then I hear some people from the boat arriving up by the restrooms. But it's these two ladies, and they're having this great conversation. It's a fun conversation. You can tell they had a nice ride on the ferry boat coming out, and they are very much looking forward to this trip. They just gotta stop in the restroom quick, and then they're gonna be on their way. But they're having just a wonderful conversation. It made you want to know them. I mean, but when they walked in the door to the men's restroom, that's when I was getting nervous. I was really nervous. And they still were having a great conversation. And at that point, I'm praying that they notice those urinals on the wall as they're walking back towards the stalls. But sadly, my prayers were not answered. They got past the urinals, and they're at the sinks, and they're right at the little precipice where they're going to walk down the hallway. There's only 2 stalls, and there's 2 of them, and I know I'm in trouble. And, pardon me, ladies, if I'm not mistaken, I think you're in the men's restroom. Oh, are we? Oh, I'm sorry. And they wander on out, and I'm able to finish up my paperwork and get back to the boat, and a few minutes later we leave Isle Royal and make it safely back to the mainland. And I wonder if that was possibly a third Windigo experience. Now I can't prove that all this happened just like I said it did, but I will let you know that I did this week upload footage of the attacking hummingbird on YouTube. If you look under hummingbird attack on Isle Royal, you'll be able to see the tail end of that experience. And so that's my story about encountering possibly a Windigo on Isle Royal. Thank you.